Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Dumbfounding Definitions, Dizzying Distinctions, and Diabolical Doctrines, a series sorting through some of the jargon of philosophy. In this video, we're going to be looking at what is the fringe group fallacy. Now, the fringe group fallacy is a version of the fallacy of association that we looked at in an earlier video. Specifically, it's the fallacy of guilt by association, or a specific type of the fallacy of guilt by association. These kinds of fallacies take a negative attribute of one group and claim that the attribute is held by another group that shares members with the first group. Broadly, these are all fallacies of hasty generalization, where you take a few observations of something and generalize it to a full population when you don't have sufficient evidence to do so. Specifically, the fringe group fallacy uses the claim that all members of some fringe group with controversial beliefs are members of another, larger group with seemingly mundane beliefs, to conclude that everyone in the larger group is actually a member of the smaller group, and therefore immoral or incorrect, or at the very least, holding of those beliefs. Basically, it's saying that there exists some fringe group within this broader group. That fringe group holds X immoral belief, therefore everyone in that broad group holds that immoral belief. I'm highlighting this fallacy because it is exceedingly common in modern public and political discourse. Here are some examples. All socialists are Democrats, therefore all Democrats are socialists. All racist Americans are Trump voters, therefore all Trump voters are racists. All aspiring suicide bombers are religious, therefore all religious people aspire to be suicide bombers. All people that support late-term abortions are liberals, therefore all liberals support late-term abortions. All people that believe men should be subservient to women identify as feminists, therefore all feminists believe that men should be subservient to women. You could go on, and I would be surprised if you haven't at least heard one of these arguments made. It's important to note that you may believe the conclusions of some of these arguments for other reasons, but simply having a fringe group hold that belief is insufficient to hold that conclusion. Let's take a look at an example. So it's important to note that there are logical consequences of beliefs, and based on someone believing one mundane thing, it may be the case that that logically commits them to holding something that is more deeply concerning. For example, if you believe in all the ideals of the Republican Party and you're logically consistent, which is tough to do, it's not fallacious to infer that you probably believe in things that follow from those ideals, such as smaller government, more military spending, and opposition to abortion. However, we can draw those conclusions because they follow from the tenets of the belief system that you claim to accept, not because there is some subgroup within that belief system that holds them. It's important to note the distinction between kind of deductive and inductive reasoning here. Inductive reasoning is sampling a bunch of individual people and saying, based on those people, all the people in this group believe that. If you do it with random sampling and believe in the scientific method, it might work. If you only pull from a loud fringe group, it's going to be a fallacy of hasty generalization. What we're doing here is not that. What we're doing here is deductive reasoning. We are taking, you believe A, B, and C. The logical conclusion of A, B, and C is D. Therefore, you either believe D or are in some way logically inconsistent. I'm highlighting this and the fallacy of association that we did in a previous video, as we will be doing more videos in the next couple months on topics that touch on political philosophy. Namely, our series about free will is going to talk a lot about these things. Particularly in a polarized environment where it's easy to dehumanize your opponent by reference to others who are despicable that support their cause, understanding valid and invalid inferences is very important. When the most radical opinion gets the most interactions on social media and therefore is all one sees out of a broader group, it's easy to see how an entire group can seem to be defined by the most radical among them. But unless you can show deductively, not inductively, that their ideals or beliefs imply those radical opinions, you don't have a logical leg to stand on. Now, this is all setting aside another issue, which is the issue of accountability. Even if the beliefs of a fringe group cannot define the moderate majority, there is a question of whether the larger group is responsible for quashing those beliefs within their fold or expelling those individuals from the group. For example, do moderate theists simply provide cover for their more radical, violent counterparts? Is it a moral imperative on theists of a religion with violent radicals, which is many, if not all, religions, to speak out against those radicals and say those aren't real people of this religion? They don't belong here, and kick them out. As opposed to saying, well, they just believe the same things we do, just in maybe a different way. Is someone that wants to raise taxes on the rich to expand the social safety net responsible for reining in someone that wants the government to seize all means of production? The questions here are basically not to say that those fringe beliefs define the entire group, but rather to say that the more moderate part of the group may have some responsibility to not wash over its more radical members if they don't believe in those things. If you don't believe those far opinions, there's a problem in you simply taking their support for your cause, but not speaking out and saying, we'll take your support, but we think there's something wrong with some of the beliefs that you have. And this is an open ethical question of whether there is a responsibility of the more moderate members to do that or not. And I would love your thoughts. So what do you think? Are moderate groups responsible for the actions of fringe extremists, even if, as we've shown through this logical fallacy, they are not logically committed to them? Even if it can't be shown that they hold the same beliefs as a fringe group, can they be held morally accountable for kind of providing cover for the radicals that share at least some of their views? What do you think? Give me the answers in the comments below. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org. Stay tuned next week. We have a live premiere of the next video in the free speech series that we're doing. I will be online and available answering comments in the chat. So stay tuned for that. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org and stay skeptical, everybody.